Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast. We are days away, no longer months, but we are days away from the NFL draft, and we're kind of counting down the days. Before we dive into any of that, obviously we're going to be discussing the biggest news of the day. Or the week, I should say. So we're going to talk about the Denver Nuggets and, the moving on from Michael Malone, at least for a little bit. And then we'll get into some of the draft stuff. We did have some of the conversation on 5280. Before we dive into any sort of topics, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the MHRT Network page on YouTube. And make sure you follow us. Jordan can't make it. He's doing some personal stuff. Like I think he's moving on to a different basketball coaching gig, and so he's got to fill out some different paperwork and stuff like that. So he will not be able to make it tonight. But
how dare you do adult things?
I know
you have to do.
How dare we do adulting? But make sure you also follow us, Brandon Miller PO, myself, at Cameron Parker PO. Also, you have Jordan that you can follow at Jordan T. Lopez. You can follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod. Let's dive into it. And Brandon, why don't you lead it off with us on this one? Because you were not there last week. You were there for the crazy game that was them deciding to just completely sit everyone. And then, of course, we get the word yesterday that they fired Calvin Booth and Michael Malone.
Yeah. So for anyone who didn't know, the only reason I wasn't here last week is I was at the Nuggets game. It was brutal. We show up. We didn't really know what was going to happen. It was the second game of the back-to-back after Jokic had like a 60-point triple-double, played every single minute basically of that overtime game. And we weren't sure what was going to happen. Like we were like, is Jokic going to play? Is he not going to play? We've had these tickets already for like a while. So obviously we weren't not going to show up just because of the previous night's game. And lo and behold, every single starter is actually out. So that was fun. That was a fun time. It was against the Spurs, and Wemby also has been obviously out with his extended injury. I think he's out for the season. Well, obviously the rest of the season is only three games, but he has been out for the season for a little bit now. So that was, kind of sucked, but it was more competitive than I kind of anticipated. Like it was really, really bad in the beginning. We sort of turned it around, still lost, of course. But what I did not expect is then less than a week later to find out the news that both the winningest coach in Nuggets history, Michael Malone, and also the general manager, Calvin Booth, were both fired before the season is over, when we are still playing for a playoff spot. And I mean, I think if we don't win tonight, I believe we'd be the 7th seed, but still a playoff team. So that was, let's say, interesting to say the least when I heard that news. I just think the timing of that is insane. And Calvin Booth, I understand getting rid of him. But it's just kind of, it feels like doomsday a little bit here. And like, I don't know if, maybe I don't have my finger on the pulse of the Nuggets quite as much as the Broncos, but it didn't seem like that was going to be what was happening. But we get that news yesterday, and it's like, damn, there's only 3 games left in the season, and you're just going to fire both of these guys. And I did see a little bit of Kroenke's, Cameron's boss's boss, just to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Or I don't know the exact hierarchy, but Cameron works for Kroenke. Yeah. Talk about the decision and basically say that like this is always where they were going to be going. Like this was the plan regardless. So that's puts a little bit of a different wrinkle on it. And I'm just shocked to see this happen, and also wondering like where does this team go from here? Because obviously you keep Nikola Jokic, you build around Nikola Jokic, but like what is that going to look like now? Are we going to try to build around him in a different way? There was reports that Calvin Booth, the now former GM and now former head coach Michael Malone, who's been our coach for 10 years, had quite a few arguments. Didn't see eye to eye. There was a time after, I think it was the Pacers game, where Malone came to the podium and basically like publicly threw the team under the bus and kind of was saying like, "Oh, these guys don't watch film and the players are suck," and that probably wasn't great. Although I'm sure he was doing it to try to light a fire under them. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's I don't really know what's going to happen from here, but I am intrigued to see where does this team go? How do they rebuild now around
Jokic?
Yeah. Excuse me. And what does that look like? Like, is MPJ going to get traded? Please. Is Murray going to get traded? I don't know, but it's tumultuous and it's really, really surprising. It's not even 2 years after we won a championship. So
I will say this. There were some comparisons of this when Michael Malone was hired. And it was one where we were kind of speculating. Is Michael Malone the Mark Jackson for the Denver Nuggets, in the sense, like, is he the coach for something bigger? And I think that the one that kind of pours some cold water on that is that they won a championship. However, the thing with the Denver Nuggets, for me at least, is they won that championship and it was cathartic. It was a phenomenal moment in Denver sports history and Denver Nuggets history. I got the banner to the left of me. It was phenomenal. I just think that for me, it's about how can we take this team around Nikola Jokic and take it just a step further, where where you're not just winning one championship, you're winning stuff beyond that, and you cannot maintain that status quo. And I think that for the Denver Nuggets, like they reached the mold of, once they hit that championship, they still maintain that status quo. And it wasn't like they hit that championship, okay, now let's see if we can get that superstar that we can get around Nikola Jokic, and then build off of that, kind of like what the Golden State Warriors did, which was, they brought in Andre Iguodala, they won that championship, and then here comes Kevin Durant, to the Warriors, right? And then there was that sustained success a little bit to where they were able to, win some more rings and everything like that. So it's just like, I just think that it was one of those things, like, how can they be able to, in a way, finally build around Nikola Jokic in a way that they can be able to maintain this sort of success, so that there isn't any sort of catastrophic events like trading or moving on from Nikola Jokic and having Jokic, join some other, teams like the Los Angeles Lakers, now that, Luka Doncic is a Laker and everything, so on and so forth. So we want to talk about doomsday. Well, that's like the ultimate doomsday now, type of scenario, knowing the fact that there is no general manager and head coach in place. But I think that overall the conversation of the Denver Nuggets and like everything that happened yesterday really should just be about why 3 games before the season was ending. And I think that that's when I think that the only way that you can really look at that is there was just far, and you alluded to it, there's just far more going on beyond the curtain, because I mean, like, let's be honest, it's like firing someone on Thanksgiving or firing someone on like Christmas Day. It's like, it's just like, you really want to move on from the person, so let's just do it now and just be done with it. You know what I mean? Like, not even like, hey, let's have a 2-week notice, if we're putting in your 2 weeks kind of thing. No, we're just going to let you go now, and we're sorry, but we're going to move in a completely different direction. And it just so happens to be on like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can really think of in terms of the reasoning behind why they would do this move at this time is like, sort of to like what Kroenke alluded to, is if this was the plan all along, I mean, yes, it does seem like they're kind of giving up on the season, which sucks, but this allows them to get the tire rolling sooner rather than later. in terms of finding the replacements for your GM and your head coach. And I have no idea who's available. I don't follow the NBA closely enough to know what GMs and or head coaches are available and which one we would want. But I have to imagine that's the primary driving force behind doing something like this, is being able to, again, fill that void and find the replacements as quickly as you can, and get that process started now, so you can kind of have your pick of where you're able to kind of pursue. But I also did hear some rumblings of like that the locker room has been toxic for most of the year. So it also could just be that, like, you know, they had to do something, like enough was enough. And even though the season's pretty much over, like, you had to make some kind of a move to just, I don't know, appease the players, not even appease the players, but just change something. Something had to be changed. You were going to do this anyway. So doing it early, like, I don't really see the downside to it other than the timing just seeming very odd. But again, you get to start the process sooner. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
You know, the other side of this that I will say, in terms of letting Malone go, we see it so often in sports too, Brandon, because it's like whenever you move on from a head coach and you, in essence, want to kind of restart the process a little bit, you have to let go of the general manager and you have to let go of the head coach. You know what I mean? And so I just,
yeah, I do think there are some cases where you can do one or the other, but I absolutely think Calvin Booth has been gone for a while for sure.
But I just think that do I think that David Adelman is going to end up, you know, having somewhat of a conversation, or maybe the front row, you know, conversation? I think that, you know, it is one where he probably will be of strong consideration. I will say this, too. You never want to put someone's hands behind their back and basically say, you know, we're going to be interviewing you for the general manager's job. But, oh, by the way, the guy that's in that seat over there, David Adelman, he's going to be your head coach. Deal with it. You know, I mean, like, that's just not necessarily the best way to go about it from a business side of things. Like, the idea is, whether they go with Adelman or not, like, if they go with Adelman, the idea is you want to pair him with the general manager that is going to be best suited for that organization, and paired with Adelman to where it's going to be able to be not a toxic relationship by any means, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know if Adelman was going to be the long-term replacement, but everything I've heard about him is the players respect him, and he's, you know, has a lot of ties to the organization. He's been there for a little bit. So, you know, I do think he's probably going to get a shot. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be an intriguing storyline to pay attention to for, you know, the next couple weeks to month, depending on how quickly this shakes out. And I honestly don't really know how quickly this sort of thing happens in the NBA, because I haven't really, like, I've seen coaches hired and fired, but like, it's never been the Nuggets for, you know, 10 years. So I've been like, I haven't paid attention to the details of like, oh, they got rid of this coach. How long did it take them to replace him? I don't know, but it's definitely going to be interesting. So we have some things to pay attention to in Denver sports for the next few weeks, because obviously we have that, and then we have the draft coming up in basically 2 weeks. So it's going to be interesting.
It is going to be fun,
and I think it'll be fun to follow. But I'm like, damn,
I will.
Whoever we hire, like, they got some shoes to fill in terms of like. I mean, yeah, there were things that we certainly took a step backward in, and like things that we need to improve upon. And there were some draft picks that were made that haven't really panned out well. And again, that's why I think that Booth was going to be gone in free agency signings. But like, again, this is a team that 2 years removed from winning a championship, and you have the best player in the world on it. So it's going to be crazy to see what do they do.
I will say this, and maybe this is just the Broncos fan in me, with like them going on and, you know, trying to go find a quarterback, or like when they were like going through coaches, that sort of thing. I will say this, like, in some like sick, like weird way, I always love these types of rumor seasons of like, oh, who's the head coach of the Denver Nuggets going to be? Oh, who's the general manager of the Denver Nuggets going to be? Like, and even for the Broncos, like, oh, who's the quarterback for the Denver Broncos going to be? Who's the head coach of the Denver Broncos going to be? Like, for some reason, I'm always like excited about those types of off seasons because it's like, oh man, I'm like super in tune about like what they're actually going to be doing. That the speculation is also like at an all-time high. So it's one where it's like I'm really looking forward to, as you're saying, like I'm really looking forward to see what they do. All right. Moving on, Brandon. And I know we do have a Lakers fan. We love you, Victory Lap. We do have a Lakers fan in the chat. We love you. We're certainly happy though that you are a Broncos fan. Let's dive into some draft. Let's dive into some draft talk, and this is going to be a bit of a fun one because this is piggybacking off of a brief conversation that we had like a couple shows ago, and I think it was when we were doing either a mock draft or we're having some sort of conversation, about draft combinations, right? And I think it's really easy to talk about this from like the three main position groups, right, that the Broncos are probably going to be looking at. And it just so happens to be, one of the deepest, groups and needs that this Broncos team probably needs, right? And that is wide receiver, running back, and tight end, right? And I think that, the interesting one is, do they really need to double up at interior defensive lineman? And if they do, who is that other defensive lineman, that they need to go for, right? So let's start first, Brandon, and kind of go with the one that's been a little bit popular, for fans. And it's been popular just from like the immediate jump, which has been the first round, starting there, and that is running back. So what is one combination? We'll just lead off with there. What is one combination for you that is just really tempting in your eyes as far as like a fun combination?
Well, it depends entirely on like who do we take. So if we were still going the Omarion Hampton route in round one that I've consistently seen linked to Denver, and obviously I have absolutely no idea, how that's going to pan out and if that's going to be what happens. But in that case, I don't even know if we take two backs and that it's just going to be he's the main guy. And maybe you still draft like a backup dude later on, but I don't know if I would see it as like a 1A, 1B situation where you'd want like, let's say, like you're looking for two starters, you're looking to go by that committee approach that we kind of have been using, and Sean Payton, I don't know if he's going to go that route or not. I mean, obviously you look at the Alvin Kamara connection and like what he did with him. But does he want to look for the next Alvin Kamara? Does he want to, spell guys and keep legs fresh? And if that's the case, like, do you want to spend first round capital on a running back? And it just kind of all starts there is what do we do at 20? Because I have seen enough people connected to us that have talked about Hampton as an option there.
At least a fair share of mock drafts lately.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, pretty far and away, clearly our biggest and last remaining need. Like we don't really have many true needs on this roster besides running back. Like that's the one, because we pretty much have no one, to be honest. Like, I mean, yeah, we have some guys, some names there that are decent, but like we don't have a starter. Let me rephrase it. We don't have a starter on this roster. At least I don't believe that we do. And I mean, is it something that I don't know? Are you going to try to do like draft your bell cow in round one with Hampton?
Yeah. And
then maybe pick up like another physical runner later on down in the draft. Like someone else from, let's just throw all the Oregon players in this offense and get someone like Jordan James. I don't know, but that's an option.
Who's, by the way, been really quiet. There's not a lot of conversation about Jordan James in the draft.
No, and I think a lot of it has been because this draft class is so absolutely ridiculously just deep and talented that you're going to have players that just get lost in that, and Jordan James is absolutely one of them.
He's not a Bucky Irving.
No, I mean, he's very Bucky Irving, the smaller, undersized running back out of Oregon last year that wasn't super popular and then exploded for the Buccaneers. Adam Fantasy. But like Jordan James, the kind of guy, he's like super, super just tough. He's just a physical runner that wants to hit the hole hard and then doesn't want to go down. So he's like a great guy to pair with like an O'Marion Hampton. I think if you're going to try to take another guy later, you can take him probably on day 3 and still get that double up. But, you know, if you're taking Hampton round 1, like I really don't want to spend another high draft capital on a running back when you take someone of Hampton's caliber. So that's definitely something to look into. And depending on where you want to go, I mean, going both Ohio State players, I don't really think that that's possible, but that would be an incredibly the way talented backfield combination, a la pretty much a copy of how the Lions backfield looks.
The way it makes sense is what Victory Lap mentioned, which is trading back. But trading back in general, take running back out of it at 20, take wide receiver out of 20, take interior defense lineman out of 20. Trading back in general is the best scenario for the Denver Broncos in general in this draft class.
I do agree with that, and I think it's trading back from in the first round, to be honest with you, and getting more top 100 day 2 capital, because that's where like the depth of this class lives. Not that there aren't some good players that you can take in round 1 of 20, like there absolutely are, but to me that's what I would go with. And the biggest issue to me with like is trading down and still trying to get both Ohio State boys is like, man, you would have to spend your top 2 picks on both running backs, and I just cannot. I just can't justify doing that in a class like this when there are so many other players you can take, and like you don't have a lot of needs, but there's starters. You can find starters in this draft in day 2 and maybe even early day 3. Like this is the draft where you can just get starters. Are they all pros across the board? Are there like super top heavy blue chip prospects? Not as many. I mean, there still are, but this is the draft where it's like, you want another starter on the defensive line? This will get you one. You want another starter, obviously running back, you can get one. You want a starter at wide receiver 3, probably can get you one. Wide receiver, not as much as defensive line and running back. Do you want to get a starting linebacker? Probably can on day 2. So like, that's where I'm like, get as many of those day 2 draft picks as you can.
And not to go too much on a bunny trail, I will say this though: the Broncos on the bunny trail regarding the trading back thing. I will say this though: the Broncos are actually in a really good sweet spot to trade back, actually, because the reason why I say that is because it's all predicated on truly what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do and how desperate the teams are behind them. Meaning, like, I mentioned it on Twitter today, but I was just like, the Rams specifically, if they are really interested in the idea of having Jackson Dart be the guy that's going to be, which I like that fit anyway, of Jackson Dart being the backup behind, Sam Darnold, and then you end up, having him sit and, be the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford. Broncos sitting at 20 is going to be a really enticing spot for them to move in front of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then, of course, what happens with the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants at 2 and 3? So the very strong rumor right now is that the Cleveland Browns and the Giants are going to be picking Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. You can flip it however it is that you want. They're not going to go QB. That is the rumor right
allegedly
now. The alleged rumor right now. So if that's true, and Shador happens to say fall to, the Saints, even, you're still sitting at a very good spot at 20, knowing the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting there behind you. So you might be able to luck out and getting a Giants first round draft pick in 2026. And to where maybe they do the unthinkable, and if Shadur's falling, and the Giants come calling, and Shadur's there at 20, and they basically take Shadur, and move in front of the Steelers and everything, or if they wanted to take Jalen Milroe, because right, because he did get invited to the NFL draft, which is interesting. Or maybe the Browns want to just come right in and take Jackson Dart, Brandon. So I mean, I just think ideally, in terms of the trading back scenario, the Broncos really are in a pretty good spot.
I mean, that does assume that someone would be wanting to trade up to 20, right?
But it does take two to tango.
It does, but I mean, I definitely think that is an option that could be on the table. There's, I don't know. It depends on, again, what you're looking for, because last time I talked about Caleb Johnson, Jaden Blue as a combination to look at, which I still love that. Jaden Blue, just because he's like, Caleb Johnson specifically is your super physical, like break tackles, stacked boxes, doesn't go down, like very goal line back. Yep. And Jaden Blue's your super speedster that can be more of your receiver. Jaden Blue does have kind of like a fairly large fumbling issue, which you'd want to evaluate and try to work with him on, because it's not great, but something like that. I mean, you can also do a similar kind of combination if you take, like, I know everyone loves the Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, but if you take the other Ohio State boy, you take Quinshon Judkins, and you get still kind of that physical runner, and then you still want a little bit more of like a speed guy. Devin Neal is not as fast as like Jaden Blue, but you could do something like that.
He's almost game speed though. Like
it's a little bit, yeah. Devin Neal's stuff is more like crazy short area speed, which is still incredibly valuable, and he's a great running back that I think is going to project well at the NFL level. But like, that's another guy that you can look at as like a later round pick if you're taking a Quinshon Judkins in let's say round 2. There's just so many that, and this is kind of why I'm almost, as much as I love Omarion Hampton, like I almost can't get on board with taking him at 20, because you can take 2 players at that position later in the draft that can give you probably the same amount of impact that he would give you as your main bell cow, because it's just so ridiculously deep. I mean, you can also take, like, if you want to get into like even some potential like undrafted free agents, and like Kyle Monaghy from Rutgers, Monaghy, and Woody Marks might not get drafted, although he probably should.
He's another one of those slept on.
He's a bit forgotten. There's there's too many freaking good ones. I can't that's why I'm like, don't take 120. I just can't. I can't get on board.
And the thing is, like, that's one of the reasons. That is one of the reasons why I've been promoting so strongly the wide receiver agenda or the Emeka Egbuka agenda at 20, because it just feels like, and even for it's the same argument, Brandon, for interior defense linemen. The interior defense lineman you take at 20 might still be a really good player, right? But the thing is, like, if you're going to be talking also instant impact, you're probably going to be getting that from that wide receiver at 20, not necessarily that interior defensive lineman, depending on, because you do look at the defensive line, the way that things are constructed right now, with the Denver Broncos, right? Mm-hmm. You have John Franklin Myers still on that roster. You have Zach Allen. You have Malcolm Roach. You already have your starting, defense line. You even have DJ Jones extended. So it's just like you're going to have those players that are going to be able to contribute. So in essence, you're going to be drafting your waiting in the wings player if you decided to move on from John Franklin Myers, right? Because you're going to be extending Zach Allen. You're going to end up, extending, Nick Bonito. Like, I'm very confident that that's actually going to be happening.
Sure. I mean, I'm more okay with the defensive lineman in the first round just because, like, you could potentially lose both those guys, even though I find it hard to believe that would happen.
But still, though, you're going to be getting really good value, like running back on day 2 and early day 3.
Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. And actually, Landon makes a good point. Brashard Smith, I keep forgetting about it. He's another one of those, like, good third down if you want, like, the bruiser and then the pass catcher. Brashard Smith, who used to be a wide receiver, is another one of those guys that you could look at for that too. But
I will say this, that brings me to the interesting one. And it's not that I don't hate Brashard Smith. The wild card of the bunch. I know we talk about Audric Estime as the wild card of the bunch, who's probably a worthwhile wild card. But the true wild card here for me is how does Sean Payton feel about Blake Watson? You and I loved Blake Watson last year.
But, we did. I mean, another running back who used to be a wide receiver.
I know.
But it's just like, what have you done for me lately? And he didn't. Maybe he does love him. Maybe he loves him so much that he's going to be that third down guy.
Right.
And we already have Brashard Smith at home, right? Maybe that's what it's going to be. But
I know. And so that's the thing is, like, we do already have somewhat Brashard Smith at home. So, but that said,
another running back that's missed constantly is Damian Martinez as well, who's like friggin' 6 feet tall, 220 pounds.
So, and that's the interesting part of this too, because if you do double up on combinations, it's somewhat of an indication for how you feel about the room. So, like, if you take Quinshon Judkins, or, you know, has been somewhat of the interest in the top 30 visits that's been following, from like Luca Evans, right, of the Denver Post, who's done a really phenomenal job of outlining and tracking the Broncos visits.
Mm-hmm.
They have visited with Ollie Gordon and Quinshon Judkins. If you're actually looking at it from that standpoint, that does not necessarily bode well on the surface for Audric Estime. A big back, and if you're actually looking at it from the running back class last year, which was a pretty good room last year from the draft side of things, this room is way better than that class last year. So if you're looking at guys like Quinshon Judkins, or you're looking at, you know, even Ollie Gordon, like, I think Ollie Gordon is a much better prospect than Estime, you know? So it's not necessarily boding well for Estime if you're kind of showing interest in some of these guys like Judkins. And, you know, even though I may think that Estime kind of compares a bit favorably to the Evan Ingram role, or sorry, not the Evan Ingram role, the Mark Ingram role that Sean had in New Orleans, Judkins is the true, like, Mark Ingram type of player, like the very, like, gritty, surprisingly athletic. He's going to be getting those tough yards. Like, he does have some very good 3-down potential. Like, it just feels like there's a lot more to work with there with Judkins, you know, and really the only thing about it is, like, Estime is like 21 years old. So it's just like, there's still meat on the bones there to work with, but Judkins, there's just too much talent there for me to ignore there for him, and even for me to pass up.
Yeah. I mean, and you talk about how you look at like what they do at that position is a indication of what they would be doing potentially, or how they view that room. And, like, I mean, even if you just look at the top 30 visits, they clearly view running back as a large position of need as it is. Bringing in Johnson, GJ Giddens, who's another guy that you can talk about as well as a day 2 pick that you can look at as a one of your top running back, kind of more bell cow sort of style. They did have Jaden Blue also in. Like, clearly this team wants to do something in that room. What they do, don't know, but, like, that's to me what that signals. And they've even talked about, like, how needed that upgrade is, you know.
And I will say, like, even just from the combination side, you look at, like, you know, the ceiling of a room too. Like, I honestly don't think that there's maybe one that would really bring you the highest ceiling, if you're looking at a combination, than something like bringing in like a guy like Jaden Blue. Because if you are able to really hone in on his fumbling issue, like, there is something to work with there. Like, if you are able to really work with him between the tackles and, bring out some of the toughness in the weight room and everything, and, as a tough runner, like, we already know what he can be bringing forth in the passing game, like on wheel routes, angle routes, everything that Sean Payton loves out of routes from his running back, Blue excels with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to he's almost like we'll get to the tight ends here in just a little bit. But like, he's almost like the Aronde Gadsden type running back for this class for me, because it's like you basically give Peyton, right? Like you give him that to work with, Blue. You are talking about like a player that could possibly be the steal of the entire running back class if it's used properly.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it does hinge on what you talked about with like working on him and his fumbling issues, but we don't want another Gordon. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's just too many. There's too many good running backs in this draft class. We have to come away with at least one of them, which will happen. But if you're not taking a guy at 20, I'm pretty positive we're going to draft two of them. It really just comes down to, is O'Marion Hampton the guy? If he is the guy, we're going to take him at 20. Great. If Ashton Genty falls to 20, I mean, he's obviously the guy. Yeah. I don't know if I can see that happening, because both the Raiders and the Cowboys pick before us. But
take Ashton Genty out of this, obviously. So
I mean, the only reason I say it is like crazy things have happened, but I'm almost 99.9% positive he's not going to be available. I don't even know if Hampton will be there. Hampton might not be there. We could look at a situation where Genty goes to the Raiders and Hampton goes to the Cowboys. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Or Bears.
Or Bears. One of them could go to the Bears too easily.
But I just I will say, take Ashton Genty out of this. Give me your five or four best fits for the Broncos at running back.
At running back, I mean, again, there's so many. It's like I can just name 8 running backs and they're all going to be a fit. But again, it depends on what you want to do. If you're looking for the Alvin Kamara, maybe Travion Henderson would be up there for me. Caleb Johnson just is already my guy. I want him regardless. Quinshon Judkins, if you're looking for more of the David Montgomery kind of running back, more the power guy. If you want the speed, I've talked about Jaden Blue a few times, but like Dylan Sampson, others from Tennessee, couldn't think of a school for a second there, is another one of those, like, what's up?
We had a person ask about Sampson in the chat.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson, another guy, is like one of those just very speedster focused running backs. He is, I think he's more of the lightning without the thunder. I like him. I just don't know if he's going to be like your bell cow. But again, maybe we're not looking for that. Maybe we're looking to have more of the committee approach. But he's definitely another one. You want to look at like super later in the draft, RJ Harvey. Maybe not even super later. It depends, I guess. But RJ Harvey is a fantastic running back as well, from UCF. I've talked about Jordan James already. And like, that's not even getting into like the super popular bells of the ball recently of Cam Scatabo as well. So like, there's just so many, like, I can make a case for almost any running back that's available in this draft class that would be a fit, just because of how absolutely atrocious our running has been. But like, I mean, I think Caleb Johnson running behind this offensive line, because like running for Iowa when he faced every single stacked box imaginable and just like had to fight through every single yard of contact that he got, and now he's going to get the best probably one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and like obviously still the NFL, but that would be crazy. Marion Hampton like had 1,000 yards after contact last year, which is also just bonkers to think about. There's just too many. There's so many.
I think
question: who will be a bust in the first 2 rounds?
I think that that's necessarily one. I don't know. It's for me. It's a hard question to answer because I'd have to see the fit first, like after the fact, and like where they're going for me to probably to firmly say like who would be. I
mean, the only people I can think of that could bust are just the guys that. I mean, obviously you don't know. Like I have no way of knowing. Especially just with the friendliness of the transition for running backs going to the NFL and like how well they're able to do as rookies. We didn't even talk about Trevor Etienne as well, Travis Etienne's brother. Right. But like you look at the guys like Bayshall Tootin and
very fast.
Very fast. And unfortunately, Jaden Blue, a guy's name I've said like a bunch of times today. They're both super fast. They both have somewhat of a fumbling problem, and that's kind of the biggest thing that I could point to for potential, like just things that could trip them up and issues that they could have. But yeah, Tootin ran a 4.32, which is ridiculous. Woody Marks is super good.
I love the way he runs, by the way. There's something there's something about the way he runs. Like you just tell he runs like a running back. Like he's so fluid with the way that he runs. Is either a pass catcher or, even just a running back. So I love the way Marks runs. By the way, I see a Manly Broncos OG in the chat. Happy birthday, Boggins.
Dude, it's your birthday? Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, man. It is draft season, so maybe after the draft, or if we're able to maybe work it, maybe we can get you on to talk about some draft, and maybe we can get you to maybe, I don't know, hype up Trey Harris at pick 20 with the whole wide receiver at 20 agenda.
20, damn, I don't know about
that. I will say this, for me, and when I'm looking at the top 5 of like, there's top 4 of fits, because like for me, like Ashton Jency's like the perfect fit. He's not going to be there.
Ashton Jency is the perfect fit for 32 NFL teams, unfortunately.
But I'm just saying, like if we're talking about he's like the perfect fit. There's a reason why they come comparing to Alvin Kamara. So I say Trevion Henderson is like the Bo Nix of running backs for Sean Payton. Like he is like the perfect fit, for Sean, for what he could be able to do. And then you have Caleb Johnson, number 2. Then you have between Omarion Hampton and Quinshon Junkins, and then Jaden Blue is basically like kind of how I have it right now. But obviously, as we know, it's super, super. It fluctuates like no other. There's so many. There's just so many to name. I think the thing that is so fascinating to me is as fun as it was talking about this running back class. Where it gets so great to talk about is the tight ends, because they have the impact player at tight end, the big slot tight end, the player that can be there, maybe 100 target guy, right? Maybe at tight end, but he's also 31 years old, and so they need to draft the replacement of Evan Ingram, or even an immediate impact player alongside Ingram, which is probably one of the reasons why Colston Loveland is probably still a thing at 20, even though I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he's going to be there at 20. I think Warren goes to the Jets at 7, and I think that Colston Loveland goes to the Indianapolis Colts at 14. But looking at the tight end combinations, Brandon, that's where it is kind of going to be fascinating, because I really don't think that there's a wrong decision here when you want to pair Evan Ingram with a tight end.
I think there's just so many tight ends that you can kind of go for in this draft class that is going to turn into like pretty much a who is available, who is there when we pick. situation because, like, again, the guys like Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, who's been, everyone's favorite draft prospect for like 2 months, although it's kind of calmed down a little bit. I don't think either of those guys are going to be available 20, and I don't think we would take them at 20. But you get past that and you get into a little bit later in round 2 specifically, I think is where you could see, like, specifically, again, I think if we go running back round 1, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I would be I'd be more surprised if Mason Taylor is not our pick in round 2. If we did something like that, he's definitely, I think, a good fit for this offense, and someone who can come in and still make a good impact as a very versatile weapon in the passing game that can also take over for Evan Ingram if Evan Ingram misses time due to injury, which could happen, obviously, because it's been, unfortunately, kind of a story of his, and he's also 31. So I think, like, if you're looking for guys that can do similar things to what he can do in your offense, I think Mason Taylor is a great option for you.
Ferguson,
Elijah, what's that?
Terrence Ferguson, Gunnar Helm.
Terrence Ferguson, Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo. Those are all going to be names in that similar kind of tier of tight ends that you're looking at. I think if you come away with, honestly, any of those names, I would be pretty happy with it. I mean, if we're just trying to recreate if we're trying to make this the Denver Ducks, I mean, you never know. It could be, we could have Terrence Ferguson and Jordan James, and who pick another Oregon player.
Which, by the way, it's about drafting a really good football player. It just so happens that he is.
Oh yeah, I'm not even saying this. And
I know this is
just
more
take the Oregon players. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just more about like a venting per se. Like, guys like Jeffrey Bossa and as Boggins mentions, like, that's my favorite linebacker in this class is Jeffrey Bossa. But like for Terrence Ferguson, like, he's a really good football player. Like, so you and it's also not just that he went to Oregon. He's got even a connection to Colorado. Like, there's a box checked, and also so I mean, like,
he didn't count as a top 30 pick or visit because he was from Colorado, but he did visit.
But he also fits what we talk about Mason Taylor. Like, he fits as far as like an inline tight end, and he's as far and away a higher ceiling room tight end than what you would have for Adam Troutman in many years to come, for that room. So, I just think that I think, like I said, there you can't go wrong with any combination, but there's also like some of like the perfect combinations that you could work with. And I think that that's where, like, the Gunnar Helm, the Terrence Ferguson, Mason Taylor combos with Ingram is probably like some of the best things to come up with, because you can have Evan Ingram still be that big slot out wide, and Gunnar Helm, Ferguson, even Mason Taylor, be a player that you can actually have, lined up, and be either a blocking tight end, or he can go out and, catch some seams down the middle of the field. So I just think that, like, that offers you a little bit more versatility. But I just think that where it's going to be so fascinating is if they take those flyers, like what you were like Elijah Arroyo, right? Like, if they take Elijah Arroyo or even a Harold Fannin, those are the two guys for me. It's like, okay, you take Elijah Arroyo, you take Harold Fannin, you could do what all coaches are so confident in doing, and that is, we're going to make him a good enough run blocker, because we know he's certainly elite and great at the traits of, receiving after the catch, right? So, like, let's work on him a little bit and refine his craft so that post Evan Ingram, we already have an Ingram in-house, and it's Elijah Arroyo, or it's Harold Fannin, that sort of player.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're really wanting your tight end to do. A lot of these guys are very much like a weapon tight end, a move tight end, like Ferguson and like Elijah Arroyo. If you want someone who can do a little bit more blocking, maybe you take Mason Taylor, although he's still not fantastic at it. But
did you hear?
There's not many running backs, tight ends that come into the NFL as fantastic run blockers or just blockers in general as a rookie. Although it can happen.
Did you hear,
But,
by the way, that Mason Taylor might be garnering some first round buzz?
No, I did not at all.
I will say
I definitely have seen. I think he's tight end 3, and I've seen a lot of people also say that as well.
There is one team out there in the first round for me that could surprise everything and take a tight end in the first round as a third tight end, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles. That is just simply because of if what they say is true about Dallas Goedert, and them kind of dangling him a little bit, and maybe getting a Mason Taylor, as the Dallas Goedert replacement.
It could happen. The other thing that absolutely terrifies me, and I would hate to no end because I just don't ever want to see this happen, is you have both Tyler Warren. You have Tyler Warren goes to the Colts. You have Colston Loveland goes to the Chargers. And then you have the Chiefs, who probably have a potentially retiring tight end in Travis Kelce. Who knows? I don't know if that's going to happen. But they, at the back end of round 1, draft Mason Taylor.
Or Elijah Royal.
I mean, but I'm specifically saying, I do not want Mason Taylor to be a Chief. I definitely don't want.
Have a draft like Luke Lachey.
Warren is not going to get to us, obviously, but I also don't want Colston Loveland in LA. But if Colston Loveland goes to LA, Brock Bowers is in Vegas, and the Chiefs get Mason Taylor. I hate this.
I will say it will have gone from one of the best quarterback now AFC Wests to also one of the best AFC West tight ends division.
And we would be fairly firmly probably at the bottom of that.
Yes, even
maybe
though
not immediately because 2 of them are rookies, but
even though Evan Ingram is significant upgrade.
Brock Bowers is already better than Travis Kelce is right now. Yeah. I mean, not in general, not as an overall player. That's crazy, but just with Travis's age and how much he's kind of dipped and how much Brock Bowers is just soared. Brock Bowers is the better tight end in this.
What is your
in the AFC West right now? And that's a crazy sentence.
What is the word? What is when you look at combinations of wide receiver? When you look at some of the combinations for wide receiver, obviously it seems pretty evident for one player in particular, and who this would be surrounding around. But that would be the Courtland Sutton type of replacement. Obviously, they haven't extended him. It's probably meaning they might still get something done with him. But the draft is still going to be happening, Brandon. So what is your perfect, replacement or combination? Let's just say that combination of wide receivers in this class.
I mean, the perfect replacement for Courtland Sutton is probably Ted McMillan. I don't know if he's going to get to 20. Probably he's not going to get to 20. But
did you see that ESPN today said that he's shades of Michael Thomas?
Yeah, I did see that. That would be that's a kind of a on the nose comparison. I like it though. Yeah. I mean, we already know. I've already talked about how much I like Egbuka. I mean, if you take him. Even round 1, I wouldn't be mad about it at all.
He's going round 1.
Yeah, I mean, he's going round 1. I mean, if we take him at 20, I would not be mad at all. That's my point. He's absolutely going round 1. He might not even be there at 20. But I would love him being the pick. I love Alec Ayomanor from Stanford. He's just a super big, kind of bully ball wide receiver. Ask Travis Hunter about him. The only reason I say that, I think I talked about this before. If you don't know, I think he had 200 yards against him on 13 catches or something, which was absolutely crazy. So Ayomanor, I really like. He's a day 2 or is a round 2 guy, but I think he's going to go higher, high enough in round 2. I don't know if he's going to be available.
I wouldn't even be surprised if Ayomanor slides into round 1.
He could go round 1, but he's first 5 picks of round 2. He just screams top of round 2 to me. He's probably not going to be there. But Trey Harris, which I know will make Boggins happy. Yep. I do like Trey Harris. I think he's also a very interesting name if you're looking at Courtland Sutton potentially not being around anymore. And then you have both Iowa State guys as well. Noel and Higgins are talented wide receivers in their own right, depending on what you're looking for. I really like Higgins. I think Higgins is super, super good wide receiver. And this is a fairly decent wide receiver class. I mean, it's not fantastic, but there's some names. And then Jalen Royals. I love Jalen Royals. And Jack Betch. There's some guys.
Jalen Royals feels like the Javon Baker of this class. Like, you know how you and I were like falling in love with Javon Baker? Like,
yeah, that didn't happen, unfortunately.
It did not happen. But Royals is like the type of he's the type of player, like, if you didn't want to go get a Emeka Egbuka or you didn't want to go get a Luther Burden, you could get a Jalen Royals in, day 2 with your 51 pick or something like that, and take it on him, or very early day 3 or something like that. Like, you could be able to take it on that and watch it flourish. But I will say, obviously, everybody knows I'm not going to be pumping the Emeka Egbuka train for people in the chat. I'm sure they all know by now. I am quite excited about the possibility of Egbuka. I think he's the safest player in the entire draft at pick 20. There's a reason why I keep hyping him up. But I think the combinations of like an Egbuka and then maybe getting a player that maybe you can be able to groom as a possible, Cortland Sutton replacement, down the line, I think is, intriguing. There's a player that's been rising up boards, that I think is such a fit, for Sean, the background, the measurements, the athletic traits, and that is Isaac TeSlaa from Arkansas. Like,
I've been hearing some buzz about him recently.
Like, just TeSlaa feels and screams like and Jack Betch is actually one of those types of players too. But it's just like, it just screams Peyton wide receiver. The big-bodied, athletic frame. He was also a former quarterback. I think he's like 6'3". Like,
I love Jack Betch.
Like, almost,
Jack Betch is awesome.
Like almost 6. I'm talking about TeSlaa. Like,
TeSlaa, yeah,
yeah, like 6'3". He might even be 6'4". But like, he had one of the like insane combines that we had seen from any wide receiver. So he was dominant. He didn't necessarily have a lot of production, but like, he was playing outside at I want to say it was like the school that he does, before he went to Arkansas, and then he goes over to Arkansas and he played strictly the slot. So I really am kind of curious about him, but yeah, there are some fascinating ones. Obviously, Afton Chisholm was one. I believe it was.
TeSlaa had like almost a 40-inch vertical too, which is
insane,
ridiculous.
So if you not actually had a chance to watch him, Brandon, truly, he's one where it's like, oh man, like, he might actually.
This is probably a poor and overly used joke, but TeSlaa is the absolute like antithesis of white boy can't jump,
or as Boggins said. It's the
exciting whites. I love that. Jack Betch and Isaac TeSlaa. That's the most Patriots wide receiver duo I've ever heard of in my life.
So yeah, no, there's just a lot of really one, and I think the other one is like, if they do go the Cortland Sutton route, like,
of keeping or getting rid of Cortland Sutton,
of moving on from him.
Yeah.
It's really hard to look at some of the replacements early on. Like, obviously Jaden Higgins has been getting.
I love Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins is my day 2 Cortland Sutton replacement if we don't take Tet, which might not happen because he might not be there.
Well, I mean, like, Higgins is getting like some buzz as far as like maybe even sneaking in the round 1. Like, that's what I was like. That might just be like buzz to. But I mean, like, crazier things have happened, as far as players that snuck into, round 1. So
I mean, totally. Like you're absolutely correct. That could happen. I just have to remind myself when we're hitting the middle of April every single year that according to sources, 50 players are going in round one.
Yeah. What is it? It was also the famous, what is it? Sources said, trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. 50 players are going in round one based on what I've heard.
Yeah. So, and I think that it's also possible too. Like, I don't even hate Vele as like the possible, Sutton replacement, because like he was compared. I even said it too. We even talked about it the moment he was drafted, and then it finally caught on, right? That the measurables and everything with RAS scores and everything compared rather favorably to Marcus Colston. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised about it, and I don't hate it. And I think that, by the way,
Vele, yeah, very similar.
But before we go into like the last thing we're going to talk about, which was worst case scenario, this is the way I'm going to say this. I don't think, and I might get a lot of heat for this because I know I've been pumping the Emeka Egbuka agenda. I also don't hate the idea if they decided to not take a wide receiver in this class or take one a little bit later. The reason why I say that, so like say that, what is being said is true, is that they really do like the room. You and I both know, Brandon, the Broncos have failed to develop the wide receiver room, and it has failed miserably because of that, in the sense of like, we wish we could have seen stuff with Jerry Jeudy. We wish we could have seen stuff with KJ Hamler. We wish we could have seen stuff with some of these players that were already on the roster, but we failed to see that. Obviously, injuries derailed some of that. Maybe sometimes, frustrations would seek out onto the field, quarterback play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it was a failed product. I will say I don't hate the idea, Brandon, of developing that room because we have failed to see that. Meaning Troy Franklin, if he works on his ball tracking and he works on his hands, that is a dynamic player because he already was separating really well. His route running was pretty solid. And Vele, at the early part of the season to the midway point of the season, he was getting a really good lion share of the targets. And then, of course, from that midway point on, Marvin Mims became wide receiver too. So sorry to go a bit long on there, Brandon, but like it feels for me like I don't hate the idea of them developing that room. I really don't hate it at all.
I don't hate it, but the thing to me that I'm just like getting stuck on is what are you doing with Courtland Sutton? Because if Courtland Sutton does not want to stay and you're not going to try to keep him, then I think you're going to have a little bit of an issue there because he's by far and away the most trustworthy, reliable veteran wide receiver that we have on this roster right now. And like, there's also just not many of them because it's a very young room. But I could see them absolutely taking a player here. Is it going to be in round one? Don't know. Is it going to be a top 100 pick or later? I don't know. But I wouldn't hate them developing these wide receivers. But I just think like you have to add something to the weapons for Bo Nix. And like, I know that they did that as well with Evan Ingram. And maybe that's just like an elite running back and maybe even another tight end. And I wouldn't be mad about that.
Yeah.
But I just think like you need to, especially with the lack of development we've seen from some of these guys.
Agree.
Like, I think you need to take one somewhere. And I don't know who that is. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Where that's taken, but that's where I land on this. And I mean, especially with reports on like, I don't know exactly who all we've looked into, but there were the Cooper Kupp links to us, Stephon Diggs. There was a rumor floating around about us inquiring about Deebo Samuel.
Deebo Samuel being interested in us or whatever. Yeah.
And then I think I saw something briefly about Brandon Ayuk, although I don't actually know if that was even remotely true. But I did just, those actions tell me they're interested in doing something there. Mm-hmm. So if they haven't done it in free agency yet, and maybe there's something brewing that I don't know, but there's definitely some guys that could be available in the draft a little bit later if you're not going round one. And I don't know. Yeah. I see them taking someone just because, again, of how we've looked at them and heard them kind of approaching that position. But I think that's going to be interesting. I mean, I've seen this guy's name also floating around a lot, but another sort of wide receiver recently, at least, because before this, he's sort of been forgotten a little bit. But Kyle Williams as well from Washington State is another
you want to talk about fast riser?
Day two wide receivers that is a fast riser for sure. Like he's blowing up. I just think I see something happening there. I don't know what it's going to be. Don't know who it's going to be. Don't know where it's going to happen. But I see them doing something.
Kyle Williams. Thank you for bringing that one up, because that's one where, man, like, you know, we talk about that's a good one, Brandon, because, you know, we talk about Marvin Mims, and obviously the news broke today of them having a top 30 visit with Matthew Golden. And then, you know, they had a top 30 visit with Luther Burden, right? But like Kyle Williams is one where, like, if you want like almost a third burner on your football team, but one where like Williams is so sneaky good. Like the hands are great. He's a really, really, really good route runner. Like if there's any possible way to take him away from the Tennessee Titans
I don't see how it's possible. I don't see him going later than pick 35 because they're going to pair him back up with Cam Ward.
I know, but it's just like if there's any way to make it work where, you know, Sean Payton can be able to, I don't know, build a track team, you know, with Troy Franklin, Kyle Williams, and, you know, Kyle Williams, Marvin Mims, and Troy Franklin, if they can be able to make that work, that is going to be a really kind of a tough offense to really stop there, because like he's such a fun product. And I know we talk about Jalen Royals, right? But like there might not be a more fun prospect wide receiver wise, like that has really been jumping for me than Kyle Williams right now.
Kyle Williams, I think, is going to be – I've seen a lot more about him recently, but Kyle Williams seems to be the perennial player that is briefly and barely, if at all, talked about in the draft community and absolutely beloved by teams and is super high on draft boards and goes really high. Like that, he just seems to be that kind of player. And he's been getting a lot more buzz lately, so that's kind of already going out the window. But he to me screams like this is someone that the league is super high on that maybe is a little overlooked by the draft community. That's not, you know, an NFL team staff member. And again, I don't know if he gets past 34. Maybe I don't know, but I absolutely could see the Titans taking Cam Ward and Cam Ward being like, "Yeah, I want Kyle Williams back."
I mean, who knows? Like, Kyle Williams went from mid-day 3 pick, like 5th round, 6th round pick, to suddenly very early day 2, like, or mid-day 2 right now. Like it is wild to see how fast he has jumped and how quickly even draft Twitter has fallen in love with Kyle Williams. One player I did want to reach out and get your thoughts on before we went on to our next topic was, you know, Savion Williams. And I know that, you know, Judson mentioned this in, you know, in the chat. Like, he's a very interesting one because, like, it's almost like if you were to make a big-bodied Marvin Mims, who's also checks the boxes of, you know, what Sean Payton is interested in, which is, you know, tall wide receiver, but also with what Mims was showing, which was versatile, out of the backfield, freak of nature. Like, he's such a hard one for me to figure out because, like, size-wise, measurables, he'd be great for a Cortland Sutton replacement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like the way he checks the box is almost like, how is this dude 6'3", 6'4", and does almost the same type of things that Deebo Samuel does? You know, so it's just like it's crazy.
Sevion Williams is like he's that built in a lab wide receiver, but the wide receiver position hasn't quite caught up to it yet. Like he's a very, very tantalizing athlete that has some things he needs to improve upon as a wide receiver, but it's absolutely there. Like he's the toolsy wide receiver. Yeah. People talk about toolsy quarterbacks all the time, and like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, whatever, but he's like the wide receiver version of that's built in a lab, has everything, checks every single box you could possibly imagine, but just needs to learn how to get better at playing actual wide receiver. But like he has every single tool that he could possibly need to become an amazing wide receiver. Does he put them all together? I don't know, but that's him. Yeah, and I wouldn't be mad at it. But again, I think he's more of a developmental guy. And I think personally, I mean, okay, sure. If they like this room and they're just like, let's take a flyer on him and see if we can develop him, I wouldn't hate it. But I view this room more as a, like, we got to add someone in here that can push the envelope a little bit and give us some meaningful snaps and be like a potential starter for us. And I want Egbuka, but that's kind of what I view it as. But like, I think Savion Williams would be a very tantalizing athlete that you can draft. And like, he's still a wide receiver. I'm not saying athlete because he doesn't have a position. He's a wide receiver, but like, he's the perfect, like, again, he's a lump of perfect clay that you can develop, but he's just not. He's not as good at running routes
yet. At least we think. So to round this out, I think you and I both kind of have this answer. Because like this is the way that the Broncos are pretty much constructed, is really, and it's one of the reasons why. I mean, yeah, Brandon and I, Jordan, like we all pretty much had the exact same thoughts of like we are promoting the Emeka Egbuka agenda at 20. Like we're really consistent there. But we are very comfortable in the fact that the Broncos can go any direction at 20 and we'll be happy. So I ask you this, Brandon, like, is there anything that is like a worst case scenario for you in the first round? Like, I don't know if there is.
I don't think that exists, to be honest with you. The only thing that would be maybe worst case scenario for me is take someone like Mykel Williams, the kind of more developmental edge prospect. Taking a pass rusher, I guess, would be worst case scenario for me, is what I would say here, just because, again, like you've seen what Nick Benito can do, but like there are some things he can still improve upon, and maybe you are not completely sold on that. And that's why I wouldn't even hate that kind of pick. But like, I guess that would be quote unquote worst case scenario. Like quarterback, yes, but I'm keeping this somewhat realistic of like people would actually draft. That's what I see this as. But like, maybe worst case scenario, I guess, is taking a linebacker. Maybe the worst case scenario is taking more of the tweener linebacker like Jalen Walker. I don't think he's going to be there.
He'd be an interesting one.
Campbell. He's just so good. I wouldn't even be mad.
I still don't even know if that's worst case scenario, though.
There isn't. That's what I'm saying. Like the only thing, these are just unconventional picks.
Yeah, that's
like not what you would expect, and I still wouldn't even call it a worst case scenario.
Maybe.
I don't know if that is a thing.
Well, because like, year. And even we haven't even had a chance to mention this either. But like,
maybe taking a safety.
What I was just saying, I don't even hate Nick Emmanwori
or Malachi Starks. I love both of them. I'm just like, do we need a safety? No. Do we need a safety in round one?
But it's
no.
like, you know,
but like also Hufanga gets injured. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Oh yeah. No, you're good. But it's like Nick Emmanwori, you add him to the room, it's like, what do you do with J.L. Skinner? Like,
Well,
because but I think
Skinner has proven nothing yet. So,
but like, there's ways you could be creative as a defensive coordinator / pass game coordinator or whatever that Leonard is, and you could maybe create a package where you don't have Dre Greenlaw or you have Greenlaw on the field, and you somewhat have Skinner and Eamon on the field, and you get a bit creative with how you want to use them because of just how disruptive they are of a talent. So I think that there's ways you could be creative with it. And I think the other position that I think is like, I wouldn't hate it, but I would just kind of question why. Like, if they decided to go cornerback after Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron, like, I would be a bit skeptical. Like, why are we going after a corner? But I'm not even against Jahdae Barron at 20. Like,
I was about to say Jahdae Barron at 20. I would sprint to the podium. I would love that pick. Fantastic pick. And like, I don't think it'd be super popular. Like, it might be viewed as the worst case scenario by some fans, but I think Jahdae Barron at 20 would be chef's kiss. Like, that would be incredible pick.
And it's one where
it's probably one of the least. I don't know. It's not a popular pick. It's not like a common pick that you would see discussed by fans. But he's like,
he is
the perfect star player. He's J-Mac on steroids. He's like, J-Mac on steroids. He's better. He's better than McMillian, and I love McMillian. I'm just gonna call him that. But he was a little inconsistent, and like Jahdae Barron, you put him in that secondary with PS2,
Moss, McMillian, like Chris Abrams-Drain.
Jahdae Barron would be a home run draft pick, in my opinion.
And even for Will Johnson too. Like, it's just like, it's hard to. The one player I might be like really talked into would be Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina, because like, as much as we talk ourselves into Jahdae Barron, I think Revel would be another one that is, he's
kind of like 2025's Tariq Woolen.
Like, he's one of those ones where it's like, he could play nickel, like, and I feel like he could do it at a really high, clip if he wanted to. And so, like, he's certainly one of those ones where I know we talk a little bit about Barron, but like, he's another one of those like probably really solid nickel corners that, probably doesn't get as much love because obviously Barron talks is like the center of it. But yeah, I mean,
I don't know. He's a very, very good athlete, very good defensive back. I don't think he's going to go in round one.
No.
Because of the ACL tear.
Yeah. Which sucks, because if he doesn't, he actually is in the Jahdae Barron conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, sure, if we took him at 20, I would maybe consider that. I would raise some eyebrows at that. But I don't think it would happen. The thing that would be maybe like another thing that fans might consider a worst case scenario, although I wouldn't even be
tackle.
I wouldn't be that mad at this. No, is if we go through the first two rounds of this draft and we do some kind of combination of picks that's just like maybe not what you would imagine or anticipate that this team would do based on everything you've heard about them and everything that we know that we need. So like, and if you go something like you take
wide receiver,
Derek Harmon or Tyleek Williams at 20, and then you take Maxwell Hairston at 52, and like you don't take a running back in the first two picks. I think that could be. I'm not even saying that that's a worst case scenario for me. I think that would actually be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But like that's where I could see Broncos country being like, this is the worst case scenario. What are we doing? We've taken no weapons for Bo Nix. We've taken no running backs, and like there's still probably 20 running backs available that all could be starters for you. at that point in the draft after those 2 picks. But like you do something like that, I think that's where it gets into.
It's funny
you see talk about this is the worst case scenario because like what are they doing?
It's funny you say that though, because it's like it's one of the reasons why I think the media is feeling like they're not going wide receiver, right? Like the media is feeling kind of like they're not going to go wide receiver, but at least to me, it feels like everything's lining up to wide receiver, right? Possibly, with Egbuka, Burden, or even Golden at 20. But I think what would be interesting is like say they do go wide receiver at 20 or first round, but then they go corner or they go like basically the 2 positions or even safety, like they go to 2 positions that's not even on radar, or better yet, like center, not even worst case scenario, but just like something that's not even in the cards. And I think and funny enough, like, it's not sexy, but it's another scenario in the first round that I don't hate at all, and that is Gray's able at 20. I don't hate that at all, because and this is something that you and I have said
that would be crazy,
because like we're talking about a player
cool.
that like he can play center, he can play guard, he can play tackle for you, like he is. He gives you the Ben Powers insurance. He gives you the, he gives you the, basically like the Wattenberg insurance. So like if, obviously if you're getting him at 20, you probably are wanting to put him at center and think he could be a really, really good center, probably. But he gives you the positional flexibility there. And obviously he's a trench player. You're building it from the inside out. So I don't hate it at all. It's a non-sexy pick. It's probably something that's not even necessarily on the radar. But Gray's able, and plus you also take away a versatile offensive tackle weapon or offensive line weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, Gray Zabel would be a crazy pick. I don't think that would happen, but I wouldn't be mad at that. He's probably going to be your starting center, and at the very least, he can also be very solid depth for you on probably almost every position on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Which can't be mad at that.
But yeah, no, we talk about. We talk
TLDR
about
worst case scenario doesn't exist.
That's what I'm saying. I know, but that's why I'm saying like I don't know if there's really a worst case scenario. Like I really don't think there's a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as Judson said, I mean quarterback, but and I think that's how exciting, as we're rounding things out, that's how exciting this offseason in general really is for the Broncos, and how exciting this is heading into the draft, because for the first time since Peyton Manning has been in the building, we can definitively say that really we are headed in a direction, thankfully, because we have a quarterback, and we have Bo Nix to thank for that, Brandon. Like we have Bo Nix to thank for that. Like he has lifted up the trajectory of this franchise in such the right direction. And obviously we have him to thank for that. We have Sean Payton to thank for that because he drafted Bo Nix. Like this team is headed in the right direction, and we finally have that offseason where we are stress-free and we can just be like, you know what? It is in your hands. Sean Payton, take the wheel and lead us in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, we are going to be doing another show for you guys next week, and then Wednesday is going to be a fun-packed show 2 weeks from now, a day before the NFL draft, because Brandon, myself, Jordan, and if we can be able to get Matty on, I'm actually going to be doing something different this year, Brandon, and actually thankful to what they've been doing at the NFL Stock Exchange show. I kind of took some ideas from it. And that is since we have 4 people, probably we're going to break it up into teams. So either me and Matty are a team, you and Jordan are a team. That way we kind of make it easier. And obviously, it's one where we can kind of collaborate a little bit, and it's one where we don't necessarily have to scramble and, do one where we kind of alternate. As fun as that is, controlling our own destiny of our own picks, it would be kind of fun where, it's one where, I don't know, maybe you and I are collaborating, Jordan and Matty are collaborating. But obviously if we have 3 people, it's kind of hard to do it that way, because 2 against 1, I don't know. And it feels like, you're controlling the narrative at that point, or controlling the board.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So are we gonna go like each team we're alternating picks, or is it gonna be like okay?
So in essence, like, because it's teams, like if we do end up with the 4, it'll be like this team's got the even number, this team's got the odd number.
Okay.
Gotcha. And then we'll go from there. But yeah, so that will, so for people that are listening, and watching, that will be Wednesday before draft night. So, and the goal on that mock draft is not to do things we want to do. That is the goal of this, is to do it what we think they're going to do. So basically putting ourselves into the chair of a general manager. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys, over there on the MHRT Network channel over on YouTube. We are pushing and pushing and pushing for 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And obviously, of course, make sure you follow Brandon and myself on the social medias at Brandon Miller PO, at Cameron Parker PO. And Jordan and Matty are not here tonight, but you can follow Jordan at Jordan T. Lopez, and you can follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod. Also, of course, we have a swag shop. So if you guys feel free, I will drop the link here after the show here on my social media page of Cameron Parker PO on Twitter. You guys can go buy some Manely Broncos swag, MHRT Network swag. You could buy, your significant other something, yourself something. I mean, there are just options that are endless over there on that store. So feel free to go shopping. Until next time, we will see you guys on Wednesday, same time, same batch channel. But before we go, it is so thankful that every year, come draft year, we have a quarterback.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what?